You're watching the Eternal Tournament Series.
All right, welcome back, everybody, to the second game of our losers bracket, playing for 7th place match. This one we've got a couple of fan favorites here. We've got Sir Rhino, everyone's favorite Knighted Rhino, on a Cambrai aggro mid-range deck that he won an ETS with just a few weeks ago, and Bradykin, new up-and-comer, Voda combo player mainly, has innovated it with such hits as Privilege of Rank, and so we're going to be having the classic small Cambrai versus big Cambrai matchup here.
Yeah, this is always an interesting matchup. Rhino has definitely seen a lot of success with this deck. It tends to be just a really good mix of aggro and like nasty, just very scary threats early, and decent to excellent mid-range threats late. Awakened Student and Seraph are both cards that provide you with very good early game presence and also have some potential for a late game setup. There are some risks to the deck, of course, but in general, this deck does perform very well against slower, more difficult control matchups, which do make up the majority of decks that are submitted to the ETS. So hopefully we'll be seeing Rhino pull this out and do some cool things with it, but I think the Voda combo deck also has a lot of strength. Basically, it is just the late game master. As long as you can get those three key cards, Ironthorn, Ascendant, and Vodafone down in any order together, they will just absolutely run away with the game. You'll get so much advantage in terms of cards, in terms of power, and then you can convert that power into board advantage with cards like the Great Parliament and Knight Chancellor Seraph. Like, there's just so many different ways that this deck just absolutely just stomps people on the numbers when it comes to building the most units, building the most cards in hand, and just basically doing all the things that control decks really, really want to do. And it's all just thanks to a bunch of silly fun combos, which, very exciting times.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing one of two things happen here. One is multiple eager owlets flying over and killing Bradykin. The other one is Bradykin getting the you cannot have more than 12 cards in hand message and drawing 40 cards in one turn. So let's see which of these happens right here.
Yeah, it's either going to be a swarm of owls or an explosion of power, and one of those two might occur. There are some ways in which both of these decks can scrap in the mid-range and actually win on just like pure damage value alone. They have a decent amount of strengths in all of their different sets, which is one of the reasons why people like Cambrai. It's not especially good in any particular area, but it tends to be extremely solid in all of them. So we will see.
It's just all good cards.
Scrapping. Yeah, lots of good cards. There's a lot of good Cambrai cards right now, and we're looking forward to seeing that happen with other factions as Set 2 comes out. But in general, like it performs very similarly in terms of balance, just because the good cards of other sets tend to be good enough to scrap with them.
Yeah, both players have pretty strong opening hands here. Like Sir Rhino has a Awakened Student into Xenon Obelisk. Bradykin has 2 time sources and a Temple Scribe. Like I don't know what more either of them would want, really.
I think Rhino's probably looking for a few more 2-drops here. Awakened Student, of course, has the risk of getting silenced by Desert Marshal. That clears it immediately. He's got the Finest Hour to keep it alive for a while, but it's not a huge threat, and Xenon Obelisk is like a 4-drop that he develops later on. I think he's very behind in terms of just trying to build out that early aggro and seal the game before the mid-range can take control.
Yeah, and Bradykin does have the answer to turn 2 Awakened Student with that Desert Marshal right away on his own turn so that it can't get empowered at all. So that means that Rhino has to take turn 3 off of attacking because he hasn't been able to deploy this Obelisk yet. So Bradykin is looking like he's in very good shape now. Just has the board kind of gummed up, has an Ironthorn into Ascendant. If Sir Rhino doesn't have like silences for that or Vanquishes to break it up, Bradykin is going to go off.
Yeah, he already got a really solid combo in terms of Voice of the Speaker into Seek power. That's not something you can line up every game, but every time that you do, it guarantees that you're going to hit cards like Ironthorn, hit cards like Mystic Ascendant. Having reliable power in Cambrai decks is actually very strong, and it's well worth the kind of weak body that Voice of the Speaker provides.
Yeah, Voice of the Speaker also helps you go off even harder when you have a Vodafone in play, because then every power you draw splits into 2 Echo power with both of Destiny, so you draw 2 more cards. If you have the full combo of Ironthorn, Ascendant, Voice with the Vodafone, then you basically hit the free card limit guaranteed.
Oh yeah, it's pretty easy to do. I mean, there are 50 power Vodafone decks that can go off with just voice through the speaker and Vodafone. It's a nuts combo. Bradykin looking at Great Parliament as an option. He can also play down Iron Thorn, although he probably wants to do that on turn 6. And from there, he's got Mystic Ascendant, and that's plenty of card draw. I think he's got most of the cards that he wants on curve, and that's going to be tough for Rhino to overcome.
Yeah, I think Bradykin was debating whether he wanted to play Parliament here or play Iron Thorn to double his power drops and play Parliament for 2 owls on turn 7. But he weighed the options and I think correctly decided that taking the 9 damage from this Tinker Overseer in the meantime would just be too much, and plays the owl now to block.
Yeah, the one advantage to Rhino's currently power-flooded hand is that he's going to get Xenon Obelisk activated very, very quickly here. He'll be able to play out his 8th power next turn. As long as the Initiate doesn't get surprise silenced, Rhino will be getting in for a lot of damage with Obelisk, but Bradykin's already built a better board, and he has the late-game cards in hand as well.
Yeah, Rhino kind of needs to draw a Seraph and have Bradykin whiff on a Silence, like right now, in order to have a chance, because the Ascendant Iron Thorn is coming online next turn, and I don't see Bradykin losing from there.
Yeah, after he plays Ascendant into Iron Thorn, he'll be able to vanquish the Tinker Overseer just because of the extra point of damage that the Xenon Obelisk is providing. Rhino could potentially keep his units lower than 4, but that really just means that he's losing slower. I think he needs to find better answers than what he's currently got going on.
Yeah, Vanquish is a good start here. Killing the Iron Thorn does get Rhino decent attacks with his ground guys, if he wants to take them. He can even attack with the Initiate, and if Bradykin trades with it, it takes his Tinker Overseer out of Vanquish range, which is kind of tricky.
Yeah, he might actually want to attack with the Initiate just because he can Finest Hour and clear all of the blockers. If his opponent wants to kill Initiate, then they're less likely to actually block it here.
Yeah, I think that Ace Space is probably the way to go. And I know that Rhino loves Ace Spacing, so I'm kind of surprised not to see one.
He might be trying to convince Bradykin to line up all 3 as blockers, which he does do, but then he doesn't Finest Hour. So from here, I'm not sure where his plan is going.
I think he sees his line of victory as this Tinker Overseer and wants to save Finest Hour to bash through the Owlet, but Vanquish from Bradykin is going to quash that hope.
Yeah, that's that one down. Rhino can now try to trade Initiate in for Mystic Ascendant, but I'm sure that Bradykin won't have it. Another Initiate means that if he trades the Initiate, he'll at least have 8 power for the Obelisk, which is very important, but he needs to find something to actually build out his board. I don't know if Rhino's running Great Parliament. No, he's running Marison's Disciple as his one big 4-drop. I think he's just a little bit out of this game.
Yeah, he just didn't have quite an explosive enough start to overcome the overwhelming late game of Bradykin's Voda combo deck. So I think that this one is going to be wrapped up pretty soon. Even though Bradykin's hand is all power, all those power are just going to cycle slowly with this Mystic Ascendant.
Yeah, if Rhino picks up another Vanquish and Bradykin just continues to tap out on power, then maybe he'll be in better shape, but Great Parliament's coming out here. That's 2 more blockers. Rhino's deck doesn't run harsh rules, so it's going to be pretty unlikely that he proceeds.
He's looking at his FUD. He drew 10 power and 6 units. Or 8 power and 6 units, but not really what you want in such a low to the ground. Like, his deck tops out at 4.
Yeah, it was a very rough hand for Rhino, and he played it the best he could, but there wasn't really much that he could do with it. So we're going into game 2. No sideboards for this one, but there will be sideboards after the next one.
Yeah, so there shouldn't be much delay here. Yep, they've already sent the challenge, and they're readying up for game 2 here. So Bradykin up 1-0.
Yeah. So opening hand, Bradykin's going to toss this one back. It's only got 1 power. Really nice curve, though, off of 1 power, if you could draw the 2nd and the 3rd and the 4th. And Sir Rhino draws into an Initiate along with a Tinker Overseer. Again, his hand's not dense with early threats, and it does have a lot more power than he'd like. But he at least gets Seraph on 3, and that should allow him to be a little bit more effective on the pressure game.
Yeah, your hand is never bad when you draw Bay number 1 right there like that on turn 1. Even if he floods out, he's got the Seraph. I think that Rhino is very, very happy for that pickup.
Yeah, we see Bradykin picking up power. He's going to have his own Seraph very shortly. The Taker Overseer is really just the star card here. There's not that many things that really knock out a 2/2 flyer in the air or would really care to. And from here, like, Bradykin can develop Combre Healer, but that's just asking to get Finest Houred. Rhino can continue to fly in with the Overseer, and anything that he develops to buff the Overseer is really going to help him out.
Yeah, I wonder if Rhino is even going to use the Finest Hour here, because if Bradykin does have a great Parliament, then Rhino is going to need that Finest Hour so that his Overseer can punch through the flyer. It'll be interesting to see what Rhino decides to do here. You could also just like hold back the Seraph. Well, I guess whether it attacks or not doesn't matter. But like either way, it's not going to die. But he might choose to take a more defensive line and aim up for 8 power for Seraph activations, because he has a Initiative of the Sands to accelerate that one turn. So he's really only 3 turns away from that.
Yeah, Finest Hour clearing the ground game, setting up an extra point of damage, putting Bradykin at 23. Initiative of the Sands hastening Sir Rhino's arrival at 8 power, which is good because he is flooding. So if he can actually get to Seraph without Bradykin finding a silence, that might be a good way for him to win this game.
Yeah, Bradykin only has 4 Desert Marshals as answers to that in the main deck. He's got Harsh Rules on the board, which I'm sure he'll bring in this matchup. But this game could very well be a game where Seraph just dominates.
Yeah, we see Seraphs blocking Seraphs. That's fairly likely. Rhino is definitely indicating that he has the Finest Hour here. Bradykin has to decide if he wants to sacrifice his own Seraph and take 5 damage, or if he wants to try and call the bluff, which, as we
I
can
think
see,
if you assume that Rhino has Finest Hour, you do block the Initiate. You take less Overwhelm damage, and it forces him to use it.
Yep, seems pretty likely that that's what's going to happen. So Finest Hour is used, the Seraph goes down, and Rhino gets 5 damage in while still having 6 on the board. Bradykin can play Martial Ironthorn next turn, but that's not the hard cast you really want to do. You usually want to set up Ironthorn for turn 6. Finding another
Ironthorn, though, I think you definitely just run out the naked Ironthorn here. Like, even though you're not getting the power boost, you need the body.
Yep, Rhino here gets to play Awakened Student into his 7th power, and on his 8th, he will be activating Seraph, which continued Seraph activations could allow him to run away with this game. Bradykin now needs to draw power to get Mystic Ascendant strength. The main problem here, of course, is that I think both players, whoever draws power first, is pretty likely favored to win.
Rhino's not unhappy to draw another flyer either. But Combre Healer doesn't really do much for him here. The ground is pretty well stalled up, and he's just poking for 2 in the air each turn, waiting for that 8th power so that he can activate Seraphs and hopefully get a big fatty.
Yeah, giving the Tinker Overseer more health is kind of nice, but the main problem with that is that I don't think there's anything in Bradykin's deck that cares that the Tinker Overseer has more health.
I guess it can block a Parliament bird now.
No, fair enough. Okay, so we see a Protect. Bradykin's playing his own meat on the ground. Rhino really needs to hit this 8th power, because if Bradykin hits his 8th power, or his 9th power, as the case may be, it's more like his 6th at this point, actually. If he hits any of those, then Mystic Ascendant goes off.
Ooh, Desert really Marshal, very, very bad for Rhino now.
Yeah, the combination of
Sandstorm
Titan does prevent the Seraph from going off. The combination of Sandstorm Titan and Desert Marshal has put Rhino on 0 cards and no offensive opportunities. Rhino just needs the power. He's picked up Marison's Disciple, which can create a Sandcrawler or a Scorpion Wasp for him. I think the Scorpion could be a way to push a little bit of damage, but it's not really much of a card that he wants.
Yeah, and he'll likely just trade for that Desert Marshal.
Yeah,
I guess he makes a flyer in case he draws a Silence or a Vanquish.
Bradykin drawing Voice of the Speaker could be set up for quite some time now. Rhino drawing power finally, but it is depleted.
He asked for power, but he wasn't specific enough. Undepleted power, please.
Yeah, so if Bradykin draws a power, and there's the Echo. That's probably just game. Mystic Ascendant into a power gives Bradykin 3 draws, and those Ironthorns are rapidly boosting towards a one-sided ultimate, which could just completely wipe Rhino's board in the 3 draws, Bradykin finds the Desert Marshal, which seals up the Seraph, and that means that all of Rhino's outs are gone. He can silence the Titan. That'll be 4 damage a turn.
But again, protecting
from
a
here,
unit from Desert Marshal's silence, and I think that's all she wrote for game 2 here.
Yeah, the addition of these protects in order to basically make all of the trades 1-for-1. There's no there's no particular card that is just like going to seal up a game. Like we can't with the protects available to just basically cover all of these outlets. It's really looking like it's starting to favor the bigger deck. Like it's very hard for these other cards to get through. There's too much stuff that's gumming up the board.
Yeah, and in addition, like now Bradykin gets to bring in some Folk Reinforcers and Harsh Rules, just get a little lower to the ground, more removal. And what does Rhino have? Like he has like Reality Wardens, Sandstorm Titans. Like these are all like big ground units that aren't going to do anything in a Cambrai Mirror. I think Bradykin gets even better post sideboard here.
Yeah, Rhino actually not taking the Reality Warden or the Sandstorm Titans. He's adding in Stand Togethers. He's probably going even lower to the ground than he already has been. And running just basically as much stuff as he can to be the beatdown. If he can actually get Bradykin in a position where Bradykin is not drawing as reliably as it's currently been going, he might be able to swing a few games back. But being the aggro when you're down 2 games is a pretty tough situation because if you miss a step, and Rhino has missed steps multiple times already, it's pretty hard to come out alive.
Yeah, I mean, and I agree with him. Like bringing in those Wardens and Titans doesn't do anything. Like it just gets you in a ground stall against a deck that beats you in the ground stall because they have Iron Thorns and Ascendants and Vodakins and you don't. Like he does have to get as low to the ground as possible. And it may look impossible, but Sir Rhino has done in this Invitational what he always does, which is get knocked into the loser's bracket fairly early and then beat everyone once he's there. So I don't know, maybe he has Bradykin right where he wants him.
Coming back from losses does seem to be Rhino's specialty. We have game ready for Rhino, and we will see how Bradykin's sideboard is going. It looks like he's looking mostly prepared. He's not doing too much different.
He's cut the Vodakins entirely, and just for the Harsh Rules, it's gotten a little lower.
That seems pretty fair. Yeah, just being able to get a board that is out of control into a situation where it is under control is really, really solid for him. And the Mystic Ascendants and Iron Thorns are doing enough.
And Bradykin on the play, that just making it the most difficult possible match for Rhino here. He's got to win 3 in a row back against the wall. Doesn't even get to go first here.
Yeah, Rhino has a 2-drop and a 3-drop, but Owlet needs a flyer in order to be active. And if it's not active, then, well, that's pretty rough for him. It does, however, bait the Desert Marshal, and that is sort of good for Rhino. It means that his Seraph could be more effective later. I think, in general, it's pretty bad just because that Owlet is a completely useless card at this point, and Desert Marshal is doing a fine job of gumming up the ground.
Yeah. I mean, it is nice to get a silence out on a kind of irrelevant guy, but Rhino does need to push damage, so he does need the flyers, and Brady can board it in more silences, so he's not likely to run out of silences for Surass later on.
Yeah, at this point, Rhino's flooded again in some senses. He's got 7 of the 8 power that he needs to activate Obelisk, and once he has that, that's really all that he needs. Finest Hour here kills 1 Seraph. Bradykin wise not to double block, I think. But
yeah, he could have played his other Marshal and triple blocked, but then he's trading 3 cards for 2 cards. He doesn't really need to do that with the Titan coming up.
Yep. So Rhino gets his 3 damage. Valkyrie Enforcer has been sided in for Rhino, so he can silence the... although he really wants to vanquish it, so this is kind of a rough call either way. I think the Vanquish gives him 2 damage this turn, and then he can silence something else later. He really needs to efficiently use his threats, but this is a tough decision just because there's... like, if he's not matching card for card against Bradykin is going to be playing Iron Thorns and Mystic Ascendants, and Rhino's going to find himself without answers to those cards.
Yeah, well, it's also hard because Rhino really wants to get the flyer down here. He doesn't really want to save it to silence the next thing because he needs to push damage. Like, Bradykin's late game is so much better than his. So I wouldn't even be surprised if he just played both of the cards, like silence it and then vanquish it.
So that seems to be the right call. So feels very wrong, but it is probably the right call. He just needs the flyer, he needs the damage, and there's not much else he can do about it. He might just silence the Sandstorm Titan and leave the Vanquish for Martial Ironthorn, since that combo is the thing that really kills him here. And having a big 5/6 running in at him every turn is maybe not as big a deal.
Yeah, I think what Rhino was thinking is that this Seraph is going to be able to start activating soon, so he wants to just like save her and like poke some damage in the air while working towards the activations, not knowing that Bradykin has another Desert Marshal. But Bradykin uses it on the flyer. That's very interesting. Oh,
Yeah, no, it makes perfect sense. It's a complete board clear for him, or like essentially it clears the flyer and then also prevents the Seraph from activating too. So at this point, Rhino's in a really rough spot. Bradykin's got another Seraph down. That card's a pretty good defensive unit. And Rhino getting to 8, but not able to activate any Seraphs, not able to activate any Obelisks. So Bradykin getting a little cheeky with the attacks there. But Parliament coming in. I think at this point he's building enough of an advantage that Rhino's going to have a hard time coming through.
Yeah, that attack does mean that they traded 3 damage, but he's still at 16. He's still in pretty fine shape here. And if he ever draws power, like his hand is just packed with stuff.
Another Parliament. That's Rhino has Obelisk here, so he can create a 5/5 and some 4/4 flyers. At this point, he might just want to ace base. Like, losing the flyer is a big deal, but I mean, Bradykin's going to be playing 5-drops soon, so this is probably his best option.
Rhino using his cursor to illustrate the blocks, the 2/5 on the 3/4. Oh, opposite double block to 5. Yeah, I think that Rhino should have just ace base. Like, if the 2/5 gets blocked by a 3/4, you don't really care, and you get to get some other damage in elsewhere. I don't really see what holding it back does.
Yeah, it's possible. Kind of bad for him, but I don't think it's too big a deal. And from here, he does get 8 damage in. Like, this activated Obelisk is really a savior for Rhino because he has that 4/4 flyer, and forcing the double block to kill Bradykin's flyer means that he actually has an out here, basically in the form of a 6/6 flyer swinging in every turn. Second Obelisk for Rhino. Man, those 2 Obelisks are just turning the game for him. As long as he's ahead on board, the Obelisks are really what sort of secure it for him. And Bradykin's still looking for that 5th power. He might actually lose this game.
Yeah, he played that Comrade Healer to buy himself an extra turn, like to make a 2-turn clock into a 3-turn clock. Then Rhino just immediately rips the Obelisk to make it a 2-turn clock again. And Bradykin, without a 5th power, he can't play the Vanquish plus the Valkyrie, and he dies to double Obelisk. Obelisk turns out still a busted card.
It's very, very good when you already have the board advantage. And when you're playing a Flyers deck, I think that did end up just saving him. So now we have 2 more matches to go. Mild sideboarding going on for Bradykin. Definitely important to have access to some answers to that Obelisk. And we will see exactly how things go. Rhino needs
Did Bradykin just add? What did he just add?
Been a decay, but I couldn't quite tell. He changed something. Oh, he doesn't have decays on the side. Oh, wait, no. Yeah, I'm not actually...
Bradykin doesn't have any decays. He just has to let Obelisk happen and hope that he can go bigger than it.
Yeah, I think it was another Combray healer. It's hard to say. I only saw a flash. But in any case, Combray banner into seat for Bradykin. Bradykin's power is awkward for the first time in 4 games. He picks up the 3rd. He will get the voice of the speaker into privilege of rank, so he's definitely going to have power every turn. Rhino, if he can really press, though...
Rhino draws that initiate right on time.
That's the second time he's done that, draw an initiate at the exact wrong time. He can play it down to buff up Xenon Obelisk, so initiate is never dead in these particular games, but it is something that isn't helping him a lot here.
Yeah, so Bradykin draws a Sigil, which means that he can play an undepleted power this turn. It means that he'll be able to play Titan next turn. So things definitely looking up for Bradykin here. Sir Rhino is going to have to either save this Enforcer, which I don't think he's going to do because he needs to play the board, or he's going to have to draw some other move for this Titan, because Titan is so good against the Flyers deck, as you might imagine.
Yeah, I think he's going to go for that. It seems pretty reasonable since Voice of the Speaker clearly secures Bradykin's move into the late game. And Bradykin playing Great Parliament here, which isn't as strong, I think, as Sandstorm Titan, although it might draw a Vanquish as opposed to a Finest Hour.
Yeah, he's expecting a Vanquish, so he plays the worst threat first, but... and I guess that the Silence does the same thing to the Flyer and the Titan. Just lets Rhino's Flyers attack unmolested.
Yep. So Rhino now has 2 Valkyrie Enforcers to come in with. He has the Tinker Overseer. At this point, I would almost attack him with everything. The Tinker Overseer can't match the Sandstorm Titan with a Finest Hour, but he really needs to have some way to kill the Finest Hour or kill the Sandstorm Titan. And there's no guarantee that Bradykin's going to block with his Titan.
Yeah, I really like Bradykin's block here. Like, he knows that Rhino is playing Finest Hours, so he doesn't expose his Titan. Like, sure, I can take a little bit of damage this turn in order to not die over 2 turns in the air.
Marison's Disciple here creating probably another Flyer. Rhino is locked down by the Titan, but he's really has one plan here, and that plan is to get over the hill with Flyers. So all he needs to do is pick up a Vanquish or another Enforcer, and he can continue to beat down.
Yeah, I mean, he has 6 Silences left. He has 4 Vanquishes left, I assume. Like, Rhino has a lot of outs to suddenly have 10 flying strength here.
I'm still a little bit... I still don't agree with these Combre healers. Like, they're using them to reinforce the health of particular units, but I mean, it's always going to be Vanquish. And once Vanquish is down, that is going to be 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 damage on Rhino's side. Bradykin now actually in trouble. This is probably going to go down to game 5.
Yeah, he has one more draw. Harsh Rule or Bust. He does not find it. So yeah, we're heading to the rubber match here, the game 5 decider.
Yeah, it's anyone's game now. This went from a very one-sided matchup to a rather even one. Rhino definitely was missing a lot of steps in his early games, and his sideboards helped him, I think, a bit more than Bradykin's did. Brady's sides were mostly oriented against the more control decks, and some of the stuff that you bring in against most aggro decks is not actually all that good against Flyer aggro decks. So as a result, like, these two are matching up pretty well. Rhino just has to take out those Sandstorm Titans, and as long as he has answers for those, he doesn't care about the rest of Bradykin's cards. He really only cares if the Sandstorm Titan is coming down on 4 and how many Sandstorm Titans there are. Bradykin's got 2 in hand, so we'll see what Rhino's hand looks like. It's looking decently strong.
Yeah, I mean, I guess like the first couple of games, Rhino just had awkward draws, like too much power, too few units, and now that his deck is operating on all cylinders, he's been able to outmuscle Bradykin in the early mid game a couple times. So we'll see if Bradykin can manage to stabilize this last game here.
I'm not sure how I feel about Rhinos playing the Awakened Student first. It is a decent move against most decks, but against a deck like Combre, you're usually going to see a Seraph or a Combre healer on turn 3. As a result, Rhino basically just sits still this turn, gets no damage, and he would have been able to play the Awakened Student and get the extra buff anyways on the next turn.
Yeah, so this is a very aggressive start by Rhino. Like, his turn 5, or turn 4 rather, is a little suboptimal here, just an Awakened Student, but his 2 early units are able to bash in for a bunch of damage here, and he has 2 Vanquishes for both of these Sandstorm Titans from Bradykin, so it's gonna be tough for Bradykin.
Is just it's a really impressive hand this early in the game. He's also got the Protect, which I think playing that right there is actually not a bad idea. Like, he wants that damage. He's probably fine with using the Protect this early. And at this point, he can just swing in for a massive amount of damage every turn. The big risk with the Combre decks is that they really can only play 1 unit per turn. So if you can get into a position of advantage early and then have removal cards for the big stuff for the next couple of turns, you can often just secure the win before your opponent has a chance to play out the rest of the cards in hand.
Yeah, interesting that Bradykin opted to boost the health of the Combre healer rather than the Seraph. I guess he's playing on Finest Hour, and it ends up kind of working out as Serrano does draw Finest Hour this turn.
Yep, Finest Hour here means that he's only going to be able to kill 1 unit. It's not the Seraph. well, it is the Seraph. He could kill the Combray healer as well, and that would give him a little bit more of a advantage when it comes to attacking later. So I think that's pretty reasonable to kill the Combray healer here. He's got Desert Marshal for Seraph if Seraph gets out of control, and the 4/4 is a really big threat.
Yeah, so Bradykin relying on these Titans. These Titans are going to get vanquished. I'm really surprised to see Bradykin not having Harsh Rule. Like, it looks like he didn't board in Harsh Rule. It seems like the best card in his deck in this matchup.
It can be very strong. Of course, harsh rules after Xenon Obelisk can be really tricky because when you wipe out your own board and your opponent still has stuff to play, you get a lot of advantage out of those extra units. Basically, the Obelisk always provides some board presence that you can't deal with harsh rule. I think that Bradykin felt very confident in his ability to build early defenses and just use cards like Sandstorm Titan and Combray Healer to prevent the lethal. But it's true that Rhino's deck does have to play really, really hard into harsh rule in order to win.
Yeah, and I think Harsh Rule is better against the Combray Obelisk deck than a traditional like Elysian or Praxis Obelisk deck, just because it's not playing all those cards that produce a ton of units with one card. Like, it doesn't have any scouting parties or any assembly lines. Like, Serrano only has Marison's Disciple that can produce more than one body for one card. So, like, even after getting Harsh Ruled, if he has an Obelisk in play, like, Serrano still has to rebuild one guy at a time.
Yep, Rhino vanquishing the second Sandstorm Titan as predicted. We see 5 damage in the air. He's now on a 3-turn clock, and Bradykin is moving up. Marshall Ironthorn gets him a decent amount of extra power. He gets to play Seraph here and have a potential 8-drop next turn. Rhino has to decide now between silencing Seraph and silencing Ironthorn. No question here, he goes straight for the Seraph.
Yeah, the Ironthorn is so far away from ultimating. I don't think you care about it. And he knows the last card in Bradykin's hand is just another power and not Mystic Ascendant or something. So I think that's a very safe silence target and definitely correct.
Yeah, even if you let the Ironthorn get up all the way, you can still save 1 unit. Oh, goodness, the third...
Titan number 3.
Yeah, that definitely hurts Bradykin, or that hurts Rhino a lot. Like, he's got the Obelisk here, and that helps somewhat, but most of what he's doing is not really going to be... He's got Protect. He can attack with the 6/6 and hope for a good block, but there isn't really a good block available. He'd basically just trade with a double Seraph block.
Seraph? Yeah.
Yeah, so Protect here will save his flyers for a while. The Ironthorns are just going to keep stacking up. Eventually, there's going to be that one-sided ultimate.
Yeah, Rhino just looking for another silencer or vanquish. Like, he still has a lot of them left in his deck, and he just has to get there before Bradykin draws 2 more power.
It's a race. Bradykin needs to draw 2 power.
2 more power.
Yep. So 1 power for Bradykin secures an ultimate and potentially a win. All Rhino needs to do is find a silence, and he hasn't found it yet. So he will be able to save 1 4/4 and...
don't play that Awakened Student, Sir Rhino. What are you doing? You know his last card's a power.
I think he's dead. He's not dead on board, so yeah, I think there is no particular reason to be playing that Awakened Student. He needs it to block if he finds a silence. Oh, he's going to save the Awakened Student.
So he saves a 6/6, which means he would only take 17 here at max.
So Bradykin tilts in, then Rhino has some options to be able to secure a win this way, but he doesn't lose, and that could be good.
Yeah, Bradykin can just ultimate again next turn, though, so... and that'll be 22 damage, so I guess Rhino isn't dead. He'd be in a little better shape if he still had that Awakened Student set. Next turn, he could play... Well, I guess it wouldn't matter. So, like, Bradykin ultimates Ironthorn here, attacks for 22. So Rhino would play 2 blockers and then still be able to be swarmed around and die. Yeah, Ironthorn is really great in a board stall.
Yep. It looks like Bradykin is going to secure the series 3-2. Extremely valiant effort from Rhino to overcome this Voda combo deck. But unfortunately, he just didn't have enough, and that third Sandstorm Titan rip from Bradykin secured the game. Basically, if that Titan hadn't been there, if Rhino had drawn an answer to it, the game would have been over on Rhino's side. It was a very close match, razor thin margins, and really, really good play from both players.
Yeah, that was a great one. So I guess we are going to take a very brief break here, and then we're going to roll right up into the winners bracket with Angry Chicken versus Alunex. So stay tuned.
See you guys then.